Okay, I get it. You already left your dislikes down below, but hear me out. I'm not hating on Bonelab in this video. Trust me, I'm just trying to state why I think that Bonelab, despite being a great game, is not an entertaining game by definition. So if you're willing to hear me out, I'm going to give my reasons as to why, and I might just change your opinion from a dislike to a like. So with that being said, let's get started. Over the past few weeks, I have been playing through Bonelabs, watching review videos, as well as talking to fellow creators about their thought process with the game. And I've heard a lot of mixed opinions, and this is what my main driving point is when I say this game isn't really entertaining. Everyone I talk to who has said they love the game doesn't really give me a reason as to how they enjoyed it. They just talk about how good the Marrow engine is, how cool the game is to play. No one actually talks about how much they enjoyed it. Even the people who say they love the game say that they kinda were annoyed with some of the physics puzzles and that it was a little bit tedious to play through. And I think that's really the core of what the Bone universe kind of is. It's not supposed to be this all entertaining type game. Don't get me wrong, it is a great game with a great story and the Marrow engine works perfectly in VR, but it's not supposed to be entertaining. In the same way a lot of other puzzle games I wouldn't really consider entertaining, I wouldn't consider Bonelab to be an entertaining title. I would consider it more an experience you're happy to have taken part of rather than something you enjoyed in the moment. I think a great way to illustrate my points as I go over them is by comparing Bonelab to something like Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life Alyx is a game that I would consider to be entertaining, and I'm sure many of you can agree. However, through my playthrough of Half-Life Alyx, I had a lot of moments where I wasn't being entertained by the game. A big thing that I believe isn't talked about enough about AAA titles is the pacing of the game. There's all these great AAA titles out there with amazing graphics, amazing gameplay, but they don't get the pacing right, especially when they have a story. Sometimes if there's too much action for too long, the player doesn't actually get a moment to reflect on what just happened, and they can't actually fully enjoy it. In the same respects, a lot of times the game can move too slowly, and you're moving from one puzzle to the next and you're not actually being entertained because you're too busy trying to actually just brute force through the game rather than playing it using all of its mechanics. This is where I think Half-Life Alyx did a phenomenal job. During much of its campaign, I felt like the pacing was on point. However, there are still moments where I felt like the pacing did slow down a little bit. Despite my enjoyment in the Jeff chapter, I still feel like at many times the puzzles went on a little bit too long before getting into the elements of horror. For example, the one scene where you have to throw a bottle into a refrigerator and then lock the fridge door. On my first playthrough, I actually got stuck on this part, and it was a very tedious experience moving past it because I had already gone through a series of puzzles to get to this moment. This isn't inherently a problem that the devs can solve. It's not like everyone got stuck on this moment, and I know not everybody did. However, because people can get stuck here and can get frustrated, it's only amplified in VR, and I think that's the big problem with VR. Unlike in traditional flat screen gaming, when you get frustrated, it is amplified by wearing a toaster on your forehead. There is nothing more frustrating than being stuck in a VR space that you cannot get out of on a puzzle you cannot solve while your head starts to hurt because now you're focused too hard, and so your back of your head's hurting, the front of your head's hurting, your eyes are starting to burn. It all is amplified inside the VR headset. And that's what I think takes away from the entertainment of puzzle games in VR. Which brings us all the way back to Bonelab, where I feel like much of the game sets me into this motion. In the past couple of live streams where I have been playing through Bonelab and even sometimes in Boneworks, I've realized that I get frustrated a whole lot when playing this game in other games where I wouldn't. I don't get frustrated in Population 1 because it's fast paced, it's always actiony, and I'm playing with the mechanics that I know I'm playing with. When playing in Bonelab, there's so many factors that you have to take into account that the frustration can just build up being stuck on puzzles. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for saying this, but realism isn't fun. I don't enjoy playing a simulator. No one actually enjoys Euro Truck Simulator. It's not a fun game because it's real. It's just what truck drivers do. The reason I play video games is to escape from the real world. So as cool as it is to bring in a real life engine with the Marrow engine where you can actually have a physical body, it's not entertaining to play with. Yes, it's cool to climb, but
is it fun? No. I want to be able to push up on the joystick and climb the ladder. I don't want to have to grab every single rung while worrying about where my legs are, if my legs get stuck or if my elbows get stuck. That's not an entertaining thing to do. No one likes climbing ladders in real life. The reason we play video games is to escape from the real life troubles, and to add all of those into a game only makes the game tedious, and that's not what you want from an entertaining game. You don't want things to be tedious. You want things to flow. You want things to move. Puzzles can be entertaining, but when puzzles become tedious, that's when you run into the problem. And I've noticed a lot looking back to my live streams, looking for clips, that I wasn't enjoying a lot of the process. And I think that's truly what sets aside an entertaining game from a game that feels satisfying. You reach the end of Bonelab and you feel fulfilled. You've gotten through the entire story mode. You've experienced all the lore. The lore is fantastic, but it's hindered by this overarching long story mode experience where you're just frustrated with a lot of the puzzles that you have to get through. And the hard part is, and the unfortunate part is, that a lot of people don't go into this game with that mindset. If you go into this game with that mindset, you will enjoy the hell out of it. You won't be entertained, but you will enjoy this game to the fullest, what the devs wanted you to feel when they created it. They created a game to be a puzzle game, to be experienced as a puzzle game, and to be thought of as a puzzle game. But a lot of people go into this looking to feel entertained. A lot of new people to VR are buying headsets to play Bonelab on their Quest, and they're refunding it, and they're hating VR, and they're putting VR in this bubble that nothing in VR can be entertaining because it's all frustrating and it's all uncomfortable and none of it's enjoyable. And that's the unfortunate cause of a game that was as hyped as Bonelab. When Bonelab first came out, you couldn't really say anything negative about it because anything so polarizing would just come across as hating on hype. And now, if you say anything positive about it, you're just playing into the hype. And it's just very polarized. Some people hate it, some people love it. And that's why I know this video itself is gonna have a lot of hate, and I'm fine with that. I just wanted to voice my opinion on why I think it's not an entertaining game and is in fact shedding a bad light on VR as a whole. Once again, to illustrate, I'm going to bring up another VR title, and in this case we're going to use Resident Evil 4 VR. This was another one of those games that was heavily marketed, hyped up, and used as a Quest 2 seller. The Resident Evil franchise is well renowned, and Resident Evil 4 is known to be a great game. So bringing it over to VR and exclusively on the Quest was a huge seller for Quest 2s. And I think it was great for VR. A lot of people got in, played their game that they loved, and was able to find a transition over. I know a lot of people just played Resident Evil 4 and then put their Quest down, never to touch it again. But that 12%, that lower percent that was willing to spend more money and willing to play other games, they really enjoyed it. And Resident Evil got them into that. Where I feel like games like Bonelabs not only don't encourage that 12% to go try other games, they scare people away from even finishing the game. Bonelab is a tough game to sit through. One, it's hard to play. It's really difficult to get through that learning curve of figuring out how the Marrow engine works. Two, it's a frustrating game to play. It is a puzzle game. Puzzle games are not for everyone. Puzzle games take a certain level of thought process to get through. And unfortunately, not everyone has that level of thought process. It's just a fact. And three, it's uncomfortable. A game as fluid as Bonelab is, it's not going to be easy on a lot of people's first time to VR. It's going to upset their stomachs, and it's going to upset their heads, and it's going to play with them. And that can scare a lot of people away from VR. So I wish I had a different view on this game. I wish I could find it entertaining, but I don't. I find it to be a well-made game that has a lot of value as an experience, but throughout my entire playthrough, I barely ever felt entertained. The only times I really felt entertained were during the jokes, but the gameplay loop itself doesn't give me that. And it's unfortunate to say, and I'm sure a lot of you who even love the game can agree with me here. So please let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I really want to hear them. Do you think that Bonelab is an entertaining game? With that being said, thank you to my members. You guys are great. Thank you for supporting the channel. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without you. A lot of these members actually came from a recent stream. I love to stream. I stream all sorts of VR games at all times. So if you want to check into those, you have to hit that notification bell since I don't have a schedule whatsoever. I just kind of stream at random times. But we were celebrating a big donation, and so I gifted a bunch of memberships to the community as a way to kind of give back. And it was a lot of fun. So if you want to check into those, I have been playing through Bonelab recently,
So if you want to check into that, make sure you do. And with that being said, thank you all for watching. Hopefully you're not too mad at me, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out, everybody. Bye.